Ritter's trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease.
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Pod Street Bullies podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, brother?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Cody.
What's not to love?
What is happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Pod Street Bullies. My name is Derek.
And I'm John. What's going on, everybody?
And that's it.
That's it.
You've got the OGs back for an episode. Matt Casey will be joining us here after he fixes the leak in the basement here.
Did he have a leak in the basement, or was he taking a leak in the basement? I wasn't sure.
No leak takes 15 minutes, man. There's something else going on in there if it's taking 15 minutes. But either way, Hoagie's on vacation. He made sure to make that a point to John earlier before we went live, passing it around to the entire Hoagland family.
Oh, homeboy's on a boat, and I'm not sure he's in the right condition to be on a boat right now.
Yeah, you know what? More power to him. I hope he has a great time.
All right, until he walks into the cabin and goes, "I'm the captain now."
Right. Then,
Except it's Hoagie's, and I'm nah.
It'd be Pod Street prison sentence. But we're gonna touch a little bit on some playoffs here. Obviously, some big happenings last night, being Sunday night, and then obviously there's a big Game 7 right now between the Devils and the Rangers that I'm going to be tuning into as soon as we get off here.
Yep.
But to this point, we've gotten a few series that we were like, okay, yeah, that was bound to happen,
Right?
and a couple that we didn't think were going to happen. So we'll start with the obvious ones here. Carolina Islanders, no surprise.
Thank you.
John's happy. Living on Long Island here.
Thank you.
Vegas over Winnipeg, 4-1 too. I mean,
Right. There was that Winnipeg wins the first game, and they're like, oh no. And then Rick Bowness. Did you see the thing with Rick Bowness, the coach?
That team, and we're going to get into it here a little bit later. That team is just just a shit show. It's bad. Dallas over Minnesota, a bit of a surprise to me. I thought Minnesota would at least take it to 7.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas is super talented, though.
Yeah.
It didn't shock me.
No, absolutely not. What did kind of shock me, and it completely goes against my bracket, I had LA over Edmonton in, I think, 7. Or no, I'm sorry, I didn't. I had Edmonton.
Okay.
I'm playing this weird game where I wanted LA to win, even though I picked Edmonton.
Yeah, I hear you. I do that all the time.
Yeah, but I went with my head as opposed to my gut.
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton's scary, man. If they Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and company, all they need is just somewhat competent goaltending, and they're dangerous.
And I mean, I'll be completely honest. I haven't watched a ton of that series
because it's on at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I'm not staying up till 1 o'clock. Well, right. I do, but it's not because of that. So I'm impressed somewhat by Skinner. Like throughout the regular season too, he had a great season.
Right.
In line for, is he in line for the Calder potentially to at least be a nominee?
I don't even know.
Yeah, who knows?
Apparently Noah Cates is too. So
he's in line for the Selke at this point, which good for him, man. But regardless, that came somewhat of a shock, but not as much as Toronto over Tampa. I think did you pick
round
Toronto?
Cup?
Right.
No, I picked Tampa.
Okay. I did too.
I got this rule. You don't bet Toronto until Toronto proves it. And hey, they did.
They did. More power to them.
I mean, what do you think about their fan base? Their fan base is legit acting like they just won the Stanley Cup. And I get it.
Yeah.
They've been through a lot.
They're like the Yankees to me, though. I'm a fan of all underdogs at this point because all the teams that I root for suck.
Right.
So I hate the Yankees fan base because I'm an Orioles fan. Mm-hmm. I hate Toronto's fan base just because they remind me of the Yankees.
Well, it's
fan
like a
base.
corporate market.
It is. It's like going into
Right.
Madison Square Garden. Everybody just threw a jersey over their, button up. Yeah.
Right.
Like,
The real
let's get up
fans
for
are in
the
the
Bucks.
parking lot kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know how the Flyers are. You don't see a ton of people coming from corporate America. You're seeing the people coming down the line, but I think a lot of people pick Tampa just based off of recent history.
Right.
The 2 series this year that wrapped up last night came as the biggest shocks. Not just me, but to everybody. I'll speak for John here. I'm confident.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one, let's just go how they wrapped up. Boston and Florida. I'm still in disbelief, I'll be honest.
I mean, you're looking at a Panthers team that no one was really sure they were even going to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't Boston shatter every regular season record?
President's Trophy, most points in a single season. I mean, the team was one of the best teams of at least the modern era. We'll speak to that.
Right.
But holy hell, man.
I mean, I'm obviously shocked, but then when you go, okay, was the President's Trophy winner getting beat? It's like, well, this happens all the time. This is like a movie that's been done before.
Yeah.
Not
but
to
this
level.
magnitude.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And to me, I was thinking about this today on the train. I got to find better stuff to think about on the train, but everybody was saying that Boston was supposed to take a step back this year. And obvious, and that this could be the beginning of the end. You had Marchand was injured in the beginning. That there were other key players too. And then they go and have this phenomenal year. I wouldn't be surprised if next year is when it all starts crumbling down.
Yeah, I mean, there's already talks about Bergeron retiring.
Krejci
came back,
right,
and he's probably done.
Right.
Now they've just signed Pasta to an 8-year ridiculous deal, which good for him. Marchand's still there, to my knowledge. I don't know what his contract looks like. I'm interested to see what they do and if they can keep the goaltenders together, Swayman and Ullmark.
And if they stay this good.
Right.
That came out of nowhere.
Ullmark was Buffalo's goalie. And all of a sudden he's going to win the Vezina. What, how, in what world? And then Swayman, I mean, they had him and Vladar last year.
Yeah, I think Vladar was traded 2 seasons ago.
Calgary.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, he's in Calgary now because I had him on my fantasy team for a little bit, and then he started shit in the bed. But their goaltending situation is perfect. And Swayman, I truly feel for the guy. I watched his press conference after the game, and he's like, I owe the guys one more save. And it's like, you say that, and you're like, whew, man. As any type of athlete, you're like, that was powerful.
Well, and also you haven't played all series, and then all of a sudden you're getting thrown in the game 7. Yeah. It's like, could you get any more pressure filled?
And how questionable of a call is that to you?
Are you benching Ullmark?
Putting Swayman. Yeah, putting Swayman in over Ullmark for game 7.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it. Not like that's saying much, but I think when you look at what was it, they took out Skinner and had Jack Campbell come in for relief in one game, and then they went back to Skinner. To me, when you're thinking about this consistency going through the playoffs, you want your guy to feel like he's your guy. And Ullmark has done so much this season to me where it's you can't pull him. He wasn't on towards the downfall of that series, but to me, you still ride your starting goalie. I don't know.
If anything, give Swayman game 6. I mean, give Ullmark a night off, let him recoup, let him just, set himself right. And then he's got game 7 to make it right.
Yeah. I mean, but nobody's playing to be in a game 7. You know what I mean?
You're right. But I mean, I think too, and this was an interesting question posed in the Flyers High and Wide chat by Paul. He had brought up which is the more epic failure, I guess is the best way to put it. This series between Boston and Florida, or when Columbus swept Tampa back in, was it 2018, 2019?
Whenever it was.
Yeah. I mean, to you, which one's the biggest failure? Who dropped the ball the most?
It's got to be Boston.
Really?
It has to be, man. Just look at everything they accomplished this season. They were just a destiny team. It seemed like every single star aligned for them this year. All of a sudden, you've got these goalies who you weren't really sure were going to be much, were phenomenal, right? You had Marchand come back early, just Pasternak, scored 60 goals. Like, they were just all around a historically dominant team. You know, and I think, like, I guess if you take the idea of like the sweep involved with Columbus, like sweeping Tampa Bay, I understand that, but just for how favored the Bruins were to win the Stanley Cup, and the fact that, like, again, Florida only made the playoffs really because Pittsburgh shit the bed. You know,
I love it.
And what, they were up 3-1 in the series.
Yeah.
To me, that's the biggest failure.
See, I completely get where you're coming from. I see the Columbus win as more monumental. I should say that's more of a letdown, I guess, from Tampa's point of view. Like, you had a team, and if we're strictly looking at the teams themselves, I think Florida is better than Columbus was at that point in time. I think Florida has a better team this year than Columbus did that year. And for Columbus to go in and win 4 straight games against a top-seeded Tampa Bay, like, I feel like that's more of a letdown. Now, not taking into account just how ridiculous Boston was this year, sure. Like, I see completely where you're coming from there. To me, like, a sweep is a sweep. It's like, what wins, a flush or a straight, you know?
I also look at it like this, though. That Columbus team, when they beat Tampa Bay, I don't think anybody was saying that they could go further, though. I think that they're waiting for that shoe to drop. I look at this Panther team and go, well, they could beat Toronto.
They could.
And then
I prefer.
Whoever gets out of the Carolina, you know, either Ranger or Devils, like, that's going to be a dogfight. Like, all of a sudden, you're looking at the potential of, like, you can see a path to Florida somehow making the Stanley Cup final. I don't think that's going to happen, but, like, you could see a path there where it's like the repercussions of Boston losing are greater than, I think, when, like, Tampa did.
You know what I mean? See your point there. Yeah, absolutely. But if we're going to go to the next series here, Seattle closed things out against Colorado, and I can't believe I'm saying
Hackstall's Seattle Kraken. I'm still not sure what a Kraken is.
Too many people, I think, are looking far too into this, like saying, like, was Hackstall handcuffed when he was in Philadelphia? And I'm like, I don't care anymore. Like, stop it with that crap. But, like, this to me, it's not on the level of a Boston collapse, but I feel like it's pretty damn close.
Colorado was pretty hurt too. I still think a hurt Colorado should have beaten the Kraken, but
100%.
You know, I can't believe that they beat them.
I love it though. Like, the chaos, I love the chaos. Upsets, just let them happen.
And Seattle's a big hockey market. Like, I think it's exciting that a newer market that, like, has traditionally been big on hockey, even when they didn't have a professional team. Like, I think that that's exciting. You know, I like the NHL when it's those traditional, like, hockey markets where you're just going to see, it's just going to feel electric in the playoffs. You know, I like that, except for if it's like the Rangers or.
I don't even, I know I'm wrong in saying this. I don't count that as a hockey market. They're a bunch of.
I mean, they're fair weather. It's just like all of a sudden they're Knicks fans again.
Yeah. You know, just like I'm a Sixers fan now.
Yeah.
But I mean, looking forward here, you've got Florida against Toronto in the second round. Carolina gets the winner of the Rangers and Devils. Edmonton and Vegas, they play Eichel versus McDavid. Interesting matchup there. And then Seattle and Dallas. So, you know, you've got some decent matchups. I can't believe I'm saying this. I think Seattle beats Dallas.
I don't know. That Ottinger is really good.
He is good, but I just, man,
and if Robertson can get going, I think he was pretty quiet in the first round. I don't know. I mean, taking Colorado to 7 games, I think that's where they might have just beat their L.
But like I forget where I heard this, but like traditionally in the playoffs, things start to slow down as the rounds go on. Like, you're not going to see that frantic pace like you did in the first round. So I think if Seattle can slow things down and just be methodical about it, which I feel like they've got the capability to do so. I'm not saying by any means they're going to, just railroad these guys, but like it could be a good series. It's
the goaltending too. You know what I mean? Like the goaltending, nobody had faith in Seattle's goaltending. Grubauer and whoever that other guy was. They just
Martin Jones.
Is that who it was? Martin Jones?
Martin Jones, yep.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, but then again, it's like, well, Dallas is the better team on paper, but so is Colorado. Yeah. So that's the great thing about the NHL playoffs that I don't think you get in the NBA playoffs. Maybe football a little bit more, but like
parity, baby.
Truly any team can win. Yep.
Beauty of a 7-game series.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, do we want to go bold and have some predictions here, or let's just
no,
see how it plays out?
Sure, we can do it quick as long as we do it quick.
Florida and Toronto.
I'm going to say I'm going to go bold. I'm going to say Florida in 6.
Okay. All right.
I think they're going to steal one in Toronto, and then all of a sudden it's going to, like, maybe they'll lose the first one and then they'll just win like 3 straight. 1 in Toronto, the 2 in Florida, and then all of a sudden.
Right. I'm going to have to go with my head here. I think Toronto's winning that series.
Yeah.
I hate to say it.
That's pretty much what's going to happen, but
yeah.
So really quick, the thing that I think is scary about Florida is they are playing with house money. Like Matthew
100%.
Like Matthew Tkachuk said, nobody expected us to be here except for us.
Right.
And the pressure is still on for Toronto.
Oh my God, yeah.
They've now become the favorite in this series.
Yeah. And I mean, they think the weight of the world's off their shoulders now that they've got past the first round.
The way they were celebrating, they might have a bit of a cup hangover.
Well, they were chanting. I saw like the video, they were chanting, "We want Florida" instead of "We want Boston." I'm like, well, of course you want Florida. They're the easier out to you guys.
He's going to love that.
Oh, I hope so. I hope that's bulletin board material for him. So Carolina and the winner of the Rangers and Devils. Does it hinge on the winner of the New York, New Jersey series?
I think it does.
It does?
I think if the Rangers beat Carolina, I think the Rangers are going to beat Carolina. Okay. I think that the Hurricanes are too beat up. And I think that, like, if the Rangers win, they've kind of gotten their crap together. Mm-hmm. And look at that team. I mean, it would be an absolute failure if they lose to New Jersey tonight with all the acquisitions they made.
You went out and got Tarasenko and Kane, like just 2 of your biggest ones. And it's like, come on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I do think if the Rangers win tonight, they'll beat Carolina, but I can see Carolina beating New Jersey.
Yeah. We do have breaking news, though, on the Pod Street Bullies front here. Matt Casey will no longer be joining us here tonight. So it is a full episode of your 2 favorites. Oh, man. Makes me reminisce, man. It really does.
Kicking it old school.
Right. No, I'm with you. I don't think Jersey, and I think, like you had alluded to earlier, I think Jersey blew their load. Like, I mean, they're a good team. They're a damn good team, but New York's been here before.
Right.
Jersey has a lot of young, inexperienced players, which, in the past I've said, like, ignorance is sometimes bliss there, but experience bleeds through. Patrick Kane's been there. Tarasenko's been in the playoffs. They both won cups. Like, you've got a good core there, and it's just, I can't see the Devils finishing them tonight.
Right. I mean, and like they were ready to crown this Smead guy the next Martin Brodeur. It's like
come on now.
he was working for Captain Hook before this.
Right. But no, I'm with you. I think the Rangers get past Carolina, although I don't know, man. Maybe I take that back. I think Carolina wins that series.
I mean, I want Carolina to win the whole thing. They were my preseason bet to win the cup. So,
what were the odds on that?
I don't remember, but I think it was like a $10 bet. Will pay like $200.
Not bad.
Something
like
that. Yeah.
Decent ROI there.
Yeah.
Western Conference to the games that we likely won't be staying up to watch. Edmonton and Vegas.
Edmonton. I think Edmonton's going to smoke them.
I hope.
I still don't buy Vegas. Yeah.
Well, could you imagine? And I'll get to this later. Never mind. I'm with you. I think Edmonton wins that series. Seattle and Dallas.
Yeah, this I got to go with my head. Like you said before, I got to go Dallas.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going with my head too, Dallas. But what I wanted to get to is an all expansion team Western Conference Finals. Could you imagine a world in which that occurs?
Yeah, well, I guess so.
We're closer now than we ever have been.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I'm trying to secretly text you a message so we don't have to say it on the show.
I get it. I understand. I'll kill the time until it comes through here. But I mean, you're potentially looking at a Florida Carolina finals in the Eastern Conference, which I think that'll be fun.
Right.
I think screw it. Give me Seattle Edmonton in the finals for the Western Conference.
Yeah, my
Eastern Conference is shot.
Though.
No,
Right.
I don't either. I think he's a fraud, but I mean, hey, good for him. No ill will. I'm not going to sit here and be the bitter Flyers fan about it.
All right. Should we actually start talking about the Flyers?
Let's start talking about the Flyers. We've spent 20 odd minutes talking other hockey.
You know what's really funny though? It's like I love the Flyer fans crapping on the Bruins and also crapping on the Maple Leafs fans for being so excited. Like, dude, I might go streaking if we don't fall back in the draft lottery.
Dude, I might go streaking if we get the first pick. I might be running down.
But man, if we stay at 7 and don't go down to 8 or 9, I might, get that excited. It's like,
right.
Let's check ourselves really quick.
I just don't want Pittsburgh jumping us. That's the one thing.
Washington getting the first overall.
Like, I can live with that over Pittsburgh, but I don't want it. I definitely don't want it.
For sure.
Talking Flyers here, trades, propositions, proposals, whatever you want to call them. I honestly call them bullshit.
Right. This is the season.
Yeah, it is. This is what the offseason is going to be like. I mean, considering the turnover we're expecting. But big one here, Jeff Merrick, Elliot Friedman, we're speaking about a potential way to get rid of Ryan Ellis's contract.
Yeah.
And boy, would that be amazing, first and foremost.
Right.
But what they're proposing is a deal with Winnipeg in which we'd see Blake Wheeler come back. Winnipeg would be able to utilize the free cap space with Ellis going on LTIR at the beginning of the season. So I don't see a world in which this deal goes through 1-for-1. And maybe I'm just stupid, but I don't know.
So I think that you have to look at it this way. Any team that is taking on Ryan Ellis's contract, right, is looking to dump a salary that they would have to bring with them on the roster, right? So they can then make other moves. So you're looking at a team that's looking for a short-term, like a short-term flip, right? Like what we call that, a retool.
Yeah.
So a team like Winnipeg wants to get back in the playoffs, but knows they have to make some moves. A team like Vancouver wants to get back in the playoffs, but they have to make some moves. So trading for the long-term relief that Ellis will provide you gives you that cap space to go out and make moves if you can get rid of someone like Blake Wheeler.
So it does, but it doesn't give you that cap space over the offseason.
But how does that work? This is the thing that still confuses me, right? Because say I'm Winnipeg, right? And this is so I'm assuming this is the deal you're talking about, right? The Blake Wheeler for Ryan Ellis, right? Straight up. So you get rid of Blake Wheeler's money, which is I think like $8 million. Then you take on Ryan Ellis. Now, can you make the moves in the offseason? Because don't you have like 15 days when the season starts to like get under the cap or like something? Like, is it where you can then LTIR Ryan Ellis and you're set? Like so like it does help you. You can do something during the offseason.
It does help you, like, I mean, minus the actual cap room you're getting back. Like, let's say, obviously, let's not say, but Ellis, his cap hit will be a part of their cap going into the season until they put him on LTIR.
Right.
And so once they put him on LTIR, that frees up all of Ellis's cap space,
Right.
which then subsequently just basically makes it look like a paper move where you got rid of Wheeler's contract.
Sure.
So you have $8 million, which helps you when it comes to the deadline, because then you could be a big spender at the deadline. But that's so far down the road. I mean, who knows?
So-
Winnipeg gets themselves in a hole.
So that's my question. And if you actually know this, and this is helpful. So if you subtract Blake Wheeler's $8 million, right?
Mhm.
And let's just say they sign a star player, just to make it easy, for that $8 million, right?
Mhm.
You can't go into day one of the season over the cap and then take Ryan Ellis and put him on LTIR. So it's like, okay, well, now we have that money. You understand what I'm saying? Where it's like you
I
make the
do.
signing of the offseason, then it's like, okay, then we.
I think they can do that, and they can go over the cap by a certain percentage.
Okay.
But then they have X amount of days before the first day of the regular season to get under the cap, which would make sense. They can do that with Ellis, put him
Right,
on
but-
LTIR.
To me, then that makes a ton of sense.
For Winnipeg, yeah.
Right.
My
Okay.
question from the Flyers standpoint, though, is we're very well aware as to the potential rumored dynamic in the Winnipeg locker room.
Mhm.
And we're very well aware of the rumored dynamic in the Flyers locker room in the past. Is this something that you want to venture down again with the potential of it being detrimental to the Flyers locker room, even though you still have Tortorella in place who could nip that in the bud,
Right.
but then you have a disgruntled Wheeler potentially?
I mean, I don't think that. I mean, Wheeler's been around for a while. I don't think he's ever been like a questionable character guy.
I don't think so either. I think there were just bigger things at play in the Winnipeg locker room that
Right.
people aren't dispelling whether Wheeler was a part of or not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it could have just not been a good mix. It could have been people just like, long-term people like Wheeler fed up with the other moves that were around.
Sure.
I honestly love the move from a Flyers perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously, like, you want to go younger, and I totally understand that. But like to get rid of just the stench of Ryan Ellis. No offense to Ryan Ellis, it's nothing that he's done, but just to completely get that away from us, right? You bring in a guy like Wheeler, who you have no idea what your center depth is going to look like if Sean Couturier is going to be around. He's a center, right? I'm not making this up, Blake Wheeler. He
That's
plays
what I'm
center.
looking up right now.
Okay.
I'm fairly certain
Regardless, right? He's
he's a winger.
Oh, okay.
That's
mean-
what he's listed on a hockey reference.
Right. Well, regardless, man, like we don't have legitimate top 6 talent, really, and
Mhm.
so if like you can even put this guy on your roster and understand that, like, okay, most likely the plan is going to be that we trade him on the deadline for assets when his cap hit will now be like what, 4 million as opposed to 8 million.
Yeah.
You probably get a pretty decent haul in return for him. But then it's like, well, what if that addition actually helps this team? Couturier stays healthy, Atkinson stays healthy, and it's like now we're pushing for a playoff spot. To me, it's a win-win. Like you either trade him for assets, or it turns into something where it's like, oh wow, like this actually helped us.
You're right. And I think too, what helps them is that they're still going to have, again, potentially the cap space to play with whatever they don't retain on Hayes if they trade him to Columbus.
Right.
So you freed up JVR, you freed up some of Hayes, you've gotten rid of, Ryan Ellis's. That way you have a bit more flexibility in the offseason as well. Not so much, in the regular season because he was already on LTIR.
Right.
But, think about it. You've got Wheeler, Atkinson on the wing. You've got Konechny on the wing. You've got Farabee. You've got the emergence of potentially a guy like Tyson Forrester who can come up. You're pretty good. I'm not going to say you're stacked or set, but you're pretty looking decent on the wing.
Right.
It's the center
stable.
depth.
Right.
It's the center depth, because then you're basically pigeonholing yourself by trading
You didn't
Hayes
even
and
mention
saying,
Tippett.
yeah, Tippett as well. Absolutely. You've got Couturier, Frost, Cates down the middle, and then you're going to play who on the fourth line, which honestly, who cares at this point?
Right.
You know?
But like a guy like Denoye can compete for that spot. Like there are people,
Certainly.
who I think who that spot can be like, all right, obtainable for.
Sure. I worry about, I guess I worry about how it's going to gel. I worry about whether Wheeler is going to gel with what Tortorella is preaching and what he's already laid the framework for.
Well, and you're also not going younger by obtaining him.
Exactly. That too.
I truly think that the plan for the Flyers would be, we're going to take on this salary to trade him at the deadline.
Sure.
And I think like there was another proposed deal that Anthony DeMarco gave on the Stick to Hockey Live podcast. And it was the same kind of deal, but it was Tyler Myers, the defenseman from Vancouver, for Ryan Ellis.
And that would make sense given, again, the rumors about
like
the
Provorov.
Flyers getting rid of Provorov or Sanheim or D'Angelo or 2 or 3 of them at this point. I think
that move almost makes more sense.
Yeah. And I think if I remember back to when we were discussing free agency, when we needed defensemen and Tyler Myers' name came up,
right?
Like I think I was kind of neutral. I was kind of like lukewarm on it. I was like, okay, cool. I'm not going to be upset if it happens, but like, I'm also not going to be like, yeah, go get him right now.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. Like, if it came down to the 2, I would probably say go get Wheeler, because like in your scenario, if it's like, okay, we're going to trade him at the deadline, I think it carries more value. I think Wheeler would carry more value and get you more than a Tyler Myers. Now, I know he's a right-handed shot. He's a defenseman. They're typically at a premium. However, depending on how he plays in our defensive system, like it could be setting us up for a bit of a short deal. You know
but
what I mean?
The interesting thing too is like what you kind of brought up was, what does it clog, right? Blake Wheeler could potentially clog a spot that a young forward could take.
Sure.
If this works out the way we're expecting, where somebody on defense is going to be traded, like Tyler Myers fits right in.
Yeah.
Because there aren't that many defensemen that are going to be ready.
You're right.
To go
Yeah. And I'll be completely honest. I'm a bit less concerned about who's it going to prohibit from coming up. Like I'd rather the team compete. I'd rather the team be competitive and go out there and attempt to win games. And if Wheeler's going to give us a better shot than Tyler Myers, then that's who I want to go after. Right. If it means that Forrester plays a little bit longer in the AHL, if it means we can't bring up a guy like Bobby Brink and get him some NHL time, so be it. Injuries are going to happen. They'll come up, they'll play, they'll plug in when they can. And who knows, if someone gets hurt, Forrester's in, he plays incredibly well, trade deadline comes, Wheeler becomes even more expendable and can get you a decent haul at the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, because like I understand where the Flyers are in this whole process right now, but I want to be damn clear. I'm not rooting for this team to be a lottery team anymore. I want them to make the playoffs.
Oh yeah,
they can do it smart, where they're not taking on long-term veterans. But like
no more Chuck deals.
Right. But if you go and grab a guy like Wheeler or Myers, and it's like, okay, it puts you over the hump and you're contending for a playoff spot, and hell, maybe you don't make it the last day, but it's like the season was competitive, then I'm willing to be like, all right. And then you cut your losses at the end of the year and you've got the cap space.
You bring up that, like we bring up like the Chuck Fletcher deals, and this is somewhat off topic, but I feel like that Sanheim contract was like Chuck Fletcher upper decking us.
We do it all. We talk about this all the time.
We do. Like it just felt like an upper decker. He's just like, taking a dump in the commode, and he's like, have fun, fellas.
Right.
Like, see ya.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's so many things to play around with at this point in time
Right.
because you're going to see a lot of names come up now that the first round's done. A team like Winnipeg, maybe a team like Minnesota is going to free somebody up and say, we want to get this guy out of there.
The
Dumba.
interesting thing too is like, I think Dumba's a free agent now.
True. That's true.
The interesting thing is like, is trading Ryan Ellis really a priority? Like, if it was just this, like a player for Ryan Ellis, fine. I'm not Shane Gostisbehere this. I'm not like giving picks to get rid of Ryan Ellis because we aren't going to get the big free agents right now. We don't necessarily need the money in the offseason the way another team might.
And we're no better than Arizona. Like, Arizona is the team notorious for taking these types of contracts. Like, we're no better than them right now. So it shouldn't be a priority. The priority should be prospects, picks, get younger, see what these kids have.
Right.
If a deal comes along and it's like, okay, listen, we'll take on Ellis's cap hit. It'll give us LTIR relief. You know, take this guy and he's going to be $6 million a year, whatever. It cancels out. Okay, if we can make the money work, fantastic. You know, Danny Briere wants to be more a part of the business end of things. Awesome. Let him figure out the numbers, count the beans, make it work, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just think that's kind of it with the Ellis thing.
Yeah, there's really not much more to dissect there until something actually happens or, you know, something is confirmed in terms of what's talked about. We could hold on to this for another episode, but I mean, we're only 36 minutes in. What do you think about the hockey ops?
I mean, we can touch on it quickly,
I
guess. Yeah, I mean, so there's so many people out there reporting that the Flyers on their, you know, search for the president of hockey ops or whatever the hell I think I was calling it the vice president of hockey ops at one point on it. Yeah. Whatever it is. But PHO. That they're not going like they're reportedly not going the traditional route where it's like the GM reports to the president of the hockey ops who then reports to ownership. It's kind of like the buffer and is somebody with a hockey background. When I've been listening to other podcasts, it's almost like Dan Hilferty wants this to be like a three-headed monster that's kind of running things where it's Val Camillo, whoever this president's going to be, and Danny Briere kind of all on equal playing field where like they're all reporting to Dan Hilferty.
Yeah.
And this president of hockey ops would be more of like helping run the business side.
Sure.
While Danny Briere pretty much is running the hockey team.
Yeah. They're looking to basically buck the trend of what a common front office looks like in hockey.
But
is what it sounds like. I don't know. Are they trying to be innovative? Are they trying to?
This is not the time to be innovative.
I could beg to differ.
Well, here's the thing, though, right? As much as you can trust a brand new general manager because, you know, of the pedigree, what people seem to say about him, and the fact that he was a beloved Flyer, I trust him. He's still never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
And his only experience with wheeling and dealing was watching freaking Chuck Fletcher do it. I want somebody who's going to be above him, not necessarily saying to him, nope, I'm vetoing this deal.
Mm-hmm.
I want somebody who can go, all right, well, here's the thing. When I did this in the past, right, I ended up trying to get a 5th round pick involved. Maybe give a call back and just, hey, can I also, you know, what do you think about maybe adding this to the deal? Like somebody who can just speak from experience. So Danny Briere is not just doing this all on his own or relying only on John Tortorella.
Sure. And I mean, we can use it kind of like as a baseline and we can get into it a little bit deeper down the road here, but the potential Hayes deal, like there was rumors about it being, you know, the framework being laid with Fletcher. And now all of a sudden Fletcher's gone. Danny Briere's left picking up papers, figuring out what it is and what we're going to do.
Right.
That's a potential situation that scares me a bit because now Kekalainen's like, I know what the framework was. I can add a pick in there. I can add a player in there.
Chuck Fletcher, it was probably they'd retain half and the Flyers would get a 7th round pick in the 2033 draft.
Right. And that could work in Danny's favor too. So like this is going to go one of two ways. It's going to be like, wow, way to go, Danny. Like, great job. You know, your first move as GM, or man, down the same road.
Got Fletchered again.
Right. It's just become a verb.
Yeah. I don't need the president of hockey ops to be like his main goal. I mean, his main like job helping on the business side. I think that the hockey team needs to be at the forefront here. And Danny Briere just needs experience to bounce stuff off of.
Yeah. It's hockey operations.
Right.
Like how the team operates. I don't care if this person's well versed on Wall Street and is just like making bundles of money off of there. I don't care. I want them to know how
Valerie's
a team works.
for.
Exactly.
Valerie.
That's what your owner's for. That's
Right.
what the corporate offices are for. Comcast. Let them sort that out. If you're going to affiliate someone with a hockey team to put players in place that make this team successful, I want someone that knows the game.
I want Doug Wilson.
Yeah. All right. I'll take him. Doug Wilson. Absolutely. Bring him in.
Yeah. I mean, any of the guys like the Scott Mellenby, sure. Dave Poulin, sure. Like
over a guy that's going to prioritize the team over the finances. Yes.
Right. The only one that I don't want is Brian Burke. Because could you imagine Brian Burke and John Tortorella
oh my God.
in a room together?
Well, isn't he just coming off the Pittsburgh?
Yeah. I mean, I like Brian Burke. I was a little disappointed that he joined the Pittsburgh Penguins with Ron Hextall because I've always liked them. But like they beat the tar out of each other.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. That would be something to behold.
But I mean, I think to keep it short though, don't listen. We have been going through so many bumps in the road. Don't worry about being too innovative. If something works, replicate it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I get your point. I understand it. But
I don't want to be pioneering something new when I just want a winning hockey team for the first time in 10 years.
But it's a high risk move with a potential for a high reward. Also potential for a low reward.
But can I ask how though? Because like where is the reward in it being like, well, Danny's just gonna make the hockey decisions? You know, like I don't see the reward. I see it either being a complete and utter disaster or it just being like,
I mean, there's always reward in it if Danny Briere is successful. If he's the one making the decisions and he's making good decisions,
right?
As opposed to him being too tied up in the business side of things, like that.
But I don't think there's that. I don't think that that's a part of this equation whatsoever. Like he, no matter what, is going to be the general manager. It's whether or not this new hire is going to be like between him and Hilferty and kind of be like his sounding board, his mentor in certain ways, as opposed to like the GM reporting to the owner, which was what people complained about Chuck Fletcher doing because there was no sounding board between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, that was I guess I'm just trying to get a whole grasp on it. Like I'll stand by what I said because I don't think I fully understand. I isolate the two. Business here, hockey here. Let them operate differently. Let them run things the way they want to run it. And when they need to tie together because it's A, the team's shit, make them better because it's affecting B, our finances, our money.
I just think hire a hockey guy or girl.
Hire a hockey individual.
A hockey individual, yes.
Yes, a hockey-centric individual.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
All right, moving on, yes. Is there anything else you would like to discuss here today, John?
Is there anything else I'd like to discuss? Well, I think we should start talking about who's going to get traded.
I think we should too. Because, I mean, we already talked about Hayes. Like, that's...
Yeah, and I'm getting so sick of... Yeah. That's getting to the point where, like, he's turning into the next JVR. We all know how that worked.
Yeah.
But...
Veteran guys, though. They're the ones probably looking to move out. So, give me one guy, if you were to say, this guy's going to get traded, and you have the most certainty about, who do you think it is?
It's Ivan Provorov.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want him to be traded because I don't know who fills that void. Like that's a really big void. And we hear things about how it's just not the locker room is not a mix. He's just a different guy compared to the rest of the team. He doesn't really want to be a part of a rebuild again.
Yeah.
So it just seems like the team's ready to move on. He's ready to move on where it makes sense. But I am a little worried about like trading him for future assets, which is obviously what you're going to get. And then and then what?
Yeah.
Like, what does your defensive core look like at that point? Like,
I think the move to make there, if you don't want the picks and prospects, it's got to be Sanheim. Like, because he's the guy that'll likely net you. Now, it's, again, a risky move, but like we talked about it before, Uyghur, like similar, identical contracts, a player that's struggling, a player that could just be in need of a change of scenery. I don't think Sanheim necessarily needs a change of scenery, but he's right on the cusp of wearing out his welcome here, to me at least.
Well, yeah, but you know how we've always been saying like the Provorov and Sanheim thing are like exclusive, where it's like you're only moving one. Like, I could see a world where that happens, Derek, but I don't think that impacts the Ivan Provorov thing anymore. I think that no matter what, like Ivan Provorov is gone. Whether or not we trade Sanheim is almost a different conversation completely now.
He's just checked out. And like, I feel for the guy. I get it. But like, if it's true too, I think Casey had mentioned it, that like one of the big sticking points is that he wants power play time. Like, if that's going to be what you're going to, put your foot down on, sorry, bud, bye.
And
like,
he's just not that good of an offensive defenseman.
And when you bring in a guy like D'Angelo, you have a guy like Cam York in the wings. You have two guys perfectly capable of power playing or quarterbacking a power play.
Right, power playing a quarterback.
Yeah, power playing a quarterback. Exactly. Yeah, it's just the stubbornness about that. I feel like alleged stubbornness. We'll say, that it. Is he resting his laurels on the one season that he led the league in power play goals? Like, is that what it is?
I don't know. I think he's very confident in his ability, and that's great. I think that he should be. Absolutely. I think that so much has happened in his time here. So much negative, and not even just him, right? Like, the team has gone through so many trials and tribulations where it's just like, I think it's time to move on. And I think that there are so many teams that make sense. Like, to me, the one that makes the most sense is Los Angeles.
Yeah. They've got the people to give up. They've got the prospects. They've got the picks. Like, it can make it happen. And adding a guy on a defensive core that really is kind of a mishmash of guys, except for like Drew Doughty. I think Braden McNabb is still, Sean Dursey, I think, is still there too.
You could probably put Provorov on the second pairing there, and he can really thrive.
Absolutely. He could kill penalties. I mean, he could play power play there, sure, whatever. Like, at that point in time, I don't care what he does.
Right.
We've talked about Vegas potentially too. Like, he'll go to a contender, and I'd be happy for him. I would, because he was a part of that first wave of guys that came in as part of that Hextall rebuild. So he was probably looking at greener pastures 4 or 5 years down the road, thinking, here's where we're going to be. Ultimately, we're not there. We're absolutely not there.
Yeah. No, I mean, to me, like, I almost put it at like 80% he's gone. I don't really see a world where he's a Flyer next year.
Now, are him and Sanheim mutually exclusive from D'Angelo moving on? Or is it something where could we realistically see all three of them moved out with, not for reasons because of the direction of the team, but for reasons solely based off of the player?
I don't think you can move away from all three, because then you're putting yourself in a position where it's like it's Ristolainen and a bunch of young guys. That's not how you develop players. I think Tony D'Angelo is going to be here next year.
I think so too. But you could bring in defensemen in free agency. Like, that is an option with that cap space you're going to clear up potentially.
Right. But, whatever, you see if this year like can be a learning moment for Tony D'Angelo. You have one more season committed to him. That's it. So it's like, you go, you see if it works. The guy wants to be here. He wants to be a Flyer. If it works and you're able to extend him and it turns out to be a great move, fantastic. If it gets to the deadline and it doesn't work anymore, you'll be able to get something back for him.
Right.
because he does have a skill set that teams are going to want.
Yeah, especially your teams that are going to be looking to make a run in the playoffs and could use somebody that's offensive minded that can quarterback a power play.
Right.
And it's one of those things. There's a need for guys like him.
Right. The Sanheim thing is interesting to me because like I don't see a world where he gets traded. I just like the team constantly says it wants to get younger. Mackenzie Weegar is older.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is like Colton Parayko. I feel like they might as well just kind of stick with the devil they know. And
not to mention that contract. Like you just signed him to it. What does that say to like anybody else who's going to sign a long-term Tippett? If Tippett signs a long-term deal and the next day they trade Sanheim, it's saying to Tippett like, yeah, man, listen, we know you just signed a 6-year deal, 7-year deal, but this is what happened to Travis Sanheim when he sucks, and we got rid of him.
And he has a no move clause.
I don't know
on his new deal. I think he might have some sort of modified. I'm not sure. Yeah. I really think that Provorov is the only one that gets traded. But the one name that we didn't bring up that like I think still involves a legit conversation is what about Risto?
He's here, man. He is here.
I think there'd be callers if we wanted to get rid of him.
I absolutely think there would be too. I think that there are teams out there that would covet him.
Right.
And I'm not saying they're going to move heaven and hell to get him.
Right.
But
like we
certainly, right, like we did. But like there are certainly teams out there that would say, yep, I'm going to take him. And you are right. There is a no trade clause for the first 4 years and a modified no trade clause for the last 4 years for Sanheim. What an asshole.
The thing with Ristolainen is I think we kind of cracked the code on him, and it's like he's kind of the perfect defenseman for what he can be now for us. And we found something that works where it's like I'd rather him be like we don't have many guaranteed things going on.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, he's going to be on your second pair. He's going to be the stay-at-home guy. You can put a freewheeler with him, you know, and hopefully it's Sanheim. Hopefully it could be somebody like Sanheim or York or, but
we saw how good they are. Like we saw it last season where they were the best pairing that the Flyers had. Right. So there's glimpses there and there's hope there. It's just being able to rekindle that and then fill the top pair and the bottom pair.
Right. Yeah.
And you have half the bottom pair. Sealer's here. He's going to play the bottom pair for sure.
I think they realistically they like him to be the 7th, but I think at least to start the year he'll be on the bottom pair.
Yeah, I'll put it this way: I'm comfortable with him being our like 6th defenseman for now.
Right.
Given the makeup of the team.
Right. Yeah, but you just have to be careful with how many you trade away without getting somebody else because I don't think Igor Zamula is much of anything anymore. No. And then like is Ronnie Attard really going to be ready? We'll have to see. Is a guy like why can't I think of his name? Emil Andre.
Andre, yeah.
I don't know yet.
Yeah, a lot of ifs. A lot of ifs.
There isn't like the forwards. We can probably name 3 or 4 guys where it's like, oh, maybe they'll contend for a spot. Not on the D to me.
There's certainly names to throw out there on the blue line that raise questions as to whether they are ready or not. None that I don't think either of us could say with any certainty that, they're ready to be a full-time NHLer at this point.
Right. Do you think that because Provorov's the only one I think that even involves this conversation is like, do you think that a guy like Provorov can net you a first-round pick in this draft?
In this draft?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think no.
That's a big ask.
Yeah.
I think he could. It's gonna take another sucker GM that thinks that they're one defenseman away. It's likely going to be a team that either lost here in the first round or lost in the second round. Like I don't think LA has their first round pick this year, do they?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like That would be a team. Maybe Vegas.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
They might not have their first round either. I don't know.
I think like just because of the pedigree that this draft seems to have, I don't think anybody is going to be like really open to trading their first round pick that still has it.
Not to mention, I mean, does this play a part like how people are now viewing Matvei Michkov, like how he could potentially slide down the board? Right. Do you think people are going to be more likely to hold on to those mid-round picks now because they're like, oh, if he slides, I'm picking him up?
You mean like the middle of the first round pick?
Like where the Flyers have historically drafted.
Right, yeah.
And not gotten out of that middle part.
Well, I even think that like there's potential that some people will fall, just because some people are rising after the U18s. You look at I think he's Czech or Slovakian, or that was the same thing. I don't know. The Davor Dvorsky, like he's climbing up, which means somebody's going to fall, So I just think unless it's like a 20 and beyond pick, like there's no shot.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if I've looked forward to a draft this much instead of like the Nolan Patrick draft when the Flyers got him solely because they had the number 2 pick.
Right.
Like that was the last draft. I think I was like, oh man, like I am excited.
Right.
And this one, like no matter where they pick, like we're all going to overanalyze it. We're all going to say he made a bad move, he made a good move, whatever it is. But like this is the one where you can truly get a talent in the draft, no matter where you are, that you're like, yeah, that guy would have been a top 5 pick.
Sure.
Like 2 years down the road. So yeah, defense though, man, I've got high hopes for Andre. I think he's going to be
eventually. I just wonder if dude, it's still nothing in this Ranger Devil game.
Good.
In the second period. This is a Ranger win though. If the Devils aren't like scoring 4 goals, forget it. They're not on tonight.
Their power play was struggling,
man. And
I don't know if they still are or not because I've been focusing most of my attention on other series at this point. But
right,
man,
yeah,
they were not
all right.
good.
Should we put a bow on this one?
Let's wrap it up. Let's let everybody know then where they're going to be able to find us.
Hoagie, where are they going to find you?
Well, Trip.
Casey.
Crickets.
Okay.
No.
You can find this podcast on all your various podcast listening receptacles. Yeah, you love it. Rate, review us, then that stuff on Apple, please.
Yeah, it's been quite some time since we've gotten any type of star review, preferably 5.
If you don't want to give us a 5-star review, don't bother. We don't need to go down on the list here.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing all right. Doing all right, but another 5-star would be nice. Tell us how much you loved us, how much you didn't love us. I don't care as long as there's a 5-star there.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, you can find me on Twitter at Pod Street Bob, John on Twitter at Pod Street Gove, all of us on Twitter at Pod St Bullies. Our affiliates are also over at Flyers High and Wide at Flyers HW. Our affiliates at 5 Minute Major Podcast at 5 Minute Major Pod. And that's it. We'll see you either next week after the lottery if it goes smooth and John doesn't have to go to bed, or we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye now.